Hey, this is our dear coach, Coach East Rome. We're on the weight class, episode 24A, the preview to UFC on Fox 7, with the headliner being Demetrius Johnson, the flyweight champion, versus John Dodson, the challenger. Let's get to the picks. Anthony Pettis versus Donald Cerrone. In the marquee lightweight bout of the night, we're going to have Anthony Pettis versus Donald Cerrone, which a lot of people are expecting to be the fight of the night. Cerrone, after a surprisingly terrible performance against Nate Diaz, the Cowboy has recovered somewhat. Yes, it wasn't against the best competition, but when you're rebuilding yourself or the promotion's rebuilding a fighter, it is the natural choice to make. The Jeremy Stevens fight was exactly what you thought it was going to be. A lot of action with the healing in the shorter end of the stick in the stand-up department. The Melvin fight was all kinds of advantageousness for the Cowboy. Melvin's lack of sub-defense is only matched by Takanori Gomi. His stand-up, while powerful, is not accurate. And then again, he also missed weight, so he was not in the best shape. Not to say that Cerrone wasn't going to beat him either way. His opponent, Pettis, had a lot of hype coming into the UFC after it absorbed the WEC. Then there was that hiccup with the Guida fight. And pretty much the same fight right after a loss, he faced the Heathen as well, and that fight went accordingly. But Showtime truly came back to his ninja form in Japan, of all places, earlier last year with the head kick to Joe Lauzon. Like I said, everyone's expecting this to be the fight of the night. I think after a filling out period, Pettis' overall striking game will fluster the Cowboy just enough to lead him to victory. I think that Cerrone would come in with the game plan in mind to offset the flamboyant style of Showtime's striking offense that would actually lead him to play more defensively, something that he's not used to doing. Even if I'm wrong, this should still be a great fight. Quentin Rampage Jackson versus Glover Teixeira. In his final current UFC contracted fight, Quentin Rampage Jackson will be facing off newcomer Glover Teixeira. I shouldn't say newcomer, but he's new to the mainstream. There is a consensus that Rampage is going to walk into the cage and lose. This has been the fight that people have been lining up to see as Glover Teixeira's coming out party. Rampage has had problems with the wrestlers that don't want to get into the stand-up war with him. I'm sorry, but wins against Rico Rodriguez and Martin, the Beastman Eastman in 2011 doesn't impress me. And that was within Glover's last 4 fights. He has crushed people, don't get me wrong, but against who exactly? Rampage is a little bit of a whiner that for some reason transformed himself into a one-dimensional striker. He is still extremely difficult to finish. The real question is if Rampage will have the conditioning for the fight. His mind tends to quit before his body, however, even with all those bad wake-ups he's had in the past. Recent history has making me believe that he will not be looking for anything other than a strong 1-2 combination that leads to a finish. I'm sorry, but that doesn't just quite cut it against a hungry fighter, much less against a hungry fighter who's on a roll like Glover. I'm sorry, Rampage Jackson will lose this fight. In the main event, UFC Flyweight Championship bout, the challenger, John Dodson, versus the champion, Demetrius Johnson. With the Flyweight Championship bout as the main event, we have Demetrius Johnson defending his belt against the Ultimate Fighter winner. Oh my God. The Ultimate Fighter winner is getting a title shot. It's been a long time since we could say that. Against John Dodson. I have seen Mighty Mouse's career both at bantam and flyweight. Now we must understand that finishing off opponents at these lower weights are a lot harder. There's not a lot of power or speed difference from fighter to fighter as, let's say, the middleweight or light heavyweight division. I don't blame Mighty Mouse for not finishing fights in his Zuffa career. I just wish he had played the nearly mandatory point game a little more excitingly. The challenger Dodson was a bantamweight himself with a little less success in that division. The problem with calling these flyweight fights in the lower divisions is because these fighters have a shorter half-life in their careers. And also, octagon control is less of an element. The magician Dodson is a game competitor with more recent finishes under his belt. However, due to the big fight game experience, I truly feel that Johnson will apply the pressure enough to frustrate Dotson with those crisp takedowns, which would lead to a very sound victory for the champ. Okay, so those are my picks. Once again, I have Anthony Pettis, Glover Teixeira, and Demetrius Johnson. All right, so those are my picks. I have Anthony Pettis, Glover Teixeira, and Demetrius Johnson retaining the flyweight championship title. Also, I didn't preview this, but I'd like to just say that I believe Clay Guida is going to beat Hitsuki Hioki. I just feel that the cage is much more beneficial for Guida than it is for his opponent. I'm working on something very, very special for the UFC in Japan on March 3rd, I believe. Please check it out. And guys,